Usually when we decide to dig into a book from the mid-1600s, I have to mentally prepare myself.
Sure.
I'm expecting something, I don't know, a little detached, maybe a bit flowery, overly philosophical, or just plain dusty.
That is a fair assumption. The 17th century isn't exactly known for its snappy, actionable business advice.
Right. But then I started reading today's source material, and it felt less like a dusty philosophy tome and more like I'd stumbled across a confidential, slightly terrifying internal memo from a CEO who just survived a hostile takeover.
That is the perfect way to describe it. We are looking at The Art of Worldly Wisdom by Baltasar Gracian.
From 1647.
Yeah, 1647 in Spain, and he was a Jesuit priest. But if you strip away some of the archaic phrasing, it reads like a modern manual for corporate warfare or high-stakes political survival.
It is shockingly ruthless.
Yeah.
This isn't a book about how the world should be fair, just transparent. It's a cheat sheet for how the world actually is. And Gracian doesn't pull any punches. He basically says, look, making your way in the world is an art form, and right now, in his time at least, it's at its absolute peak difficulty.
Acme, I believe, is the word he uses, the highest point. And his argument is fascinating. He says it takes more effort today to deal with a single person than it used to take to deal with an entire nation in ancient times.
Which honestly feels incredibly relatable to anyone trying to navigate modern office politics or even just social media.
Yeah.
It feels like the stakes are always weirdly high. So our mission today is to unpack this survival guide. We've got 300 maxims, little nuggets of advice in the source material, but we've distilled them down to the absolute pillars of his philosophy.
We're going to talk about the power of silence, how to handle your boss, dealing with enemies, and this weird, delicate balance between being cunning and being virtuous.
And the balance is key. Right at the beginning, in Maxim 2, he sets the stage. He talks about character and intellect.
He calls them the two poles of our capacity. One without the other is useless. You can have all the brains in the world, but without character, you're only halfway to happiness.
Okay, let's unpack that because it sounds nice, very high road, but then he immediately pivots to some advice that feels, well, a lot less nice and a lot more strategic.
Oh, yeah.
Let's dive into the first big theme, the art of concealment.
This is one of Gracian's favorite topics. If there is a holy of holies in worldly wisdom, as he puts it in Maxim 3, it is cautious silence.
Maxim 3 is titled, Keep Matters for a Time in Suspense. Now, I have to stop you here because this flies in the face of everything we're told today.
Everything.
We're told to be transparent, to build in public, to set clear expectations. But Gracian says it's useless and insipid to play with the cards on the table.
Well, think about that in a negotiation or even just a social setting. If you declare exactly what you're going to do before you do it, you lose all your leverage.
Right.
Gracian argues that if you announce your resolution and then fail, you suffer double the misfortune.
Because you failed, and you look like a fool for promising it.
Precisely. But here is the catch.
Yes.
Even if you succeed after announcing it, nobody is that impressed because they expected it. It's a lose-lose to be an open book.
So you get no credit.
None. He actually says to mix a little mystery with everything because mystery arouses veneration.
Veneration is a strong word. It's not just respect, it's almost worship.
It is about distance. If people can't quite figure you out, they respect you more. And it connects directly to Maxim 94. Keep the extent of your abilities unknown.
Now, this one really challenged me. In today's world, we're taught to build our personal brand, right? Showcase your talents, put it all on LinkedIn, shout about your skills. But Gracian is saying, no, hide it. Why? That seems counterproductive. If I hide my talent, how do I get hired?
It comes back to that veneration and power dynamics. He writes, if people can fathom you entirely, they stop respecting you. It's a very cynical, but perhaps accurate view of human nature. We are fascinated by the unknown. Once we know the limits of someone's talent, even if that talent is great, we categorize them.
Put them in a box.
We say, okay, that's what they can do, and we move on. Doubt, Gracian argues, arouses more respect than accurate knowledge.
So never let them see the bottom of the well.
Exactly, because if they see the bottom, they know they can drain you.
That is exhausting to think about. But he doubles down on this with Maxim 179, reticence is the seal of capacity. I highlighted this line because it felt like a warning. A breast without a secret is an open letter.
And an open letter can be read by anyone. He uses a very transactional metaphor there. He says you pay a ransom to everyone you tell a secret to.
A ransom?
Yes. Think about it. Once the information is out, you have lost control. You are indebted to their silence. You have handed them a piece of leverage over you.
So the takeaway here is that being predictable is a weakness. Being inscrutable is power.
Pretty much.
But speaking of power, let's get into the section that I think will resonate or maybe terrify anyone who has ever had a boss.
Ah, yes. The famous Maxim 7.
Avoid victories over superiors. This is the boss rule.
It is timeless advice. Gracian uses a beautiful celestial analogy here. He talks about the stars and the sun. The stars are brilliant, they shine bright, but they have the happy tact never to rival the sun's brilliance.
Meaning, when the sun is out, the stars disappear. They know their place.
Correct. Gracian warns that superiority is always detested, but superiority over your superior is fatal.
Fatal.
If you outshine the person who holds the keys to your advancement, you aren't proving your worth. You're proving you're a threat.
But isn't that just insecurity on the boss's part? I mean, shouldn't a good leader want their team to be smarter than them?
Ideally, yes. In reality, Gracian says no. He argues that even the most confident leader has a vanity that cannot be touched.
So you can't touch their ego.
He says you can outdo your boss in good luck or good temper. Those are safe, but never in good sense.
Because good sense is a royal prerogative. It's the core of their authority.
Exactly. If you help them, Gracian advises, do it as if you were reminding them of something they forgot, not teaching them something they didn't know.
Oh, wow.
You have to cloak your intelligence to survive.
That is some heavy ego management. It feels manipulative, but I guess he would argue it's just self-preservation. But it gets darker. Let's look at Maxim 5. Create a feeling of dependence.
This is where we see the difference between friendship and strategy. Gracian states bluntly, the wise man would rather see men needing him than thanking him.
Needing him than thanking him. That is cold. Why is gratitude bad?
Gratitude isn't bad, but it is a burden. It fades. People don't like feeling indebted. But hope?
Hope is different.
Hope is a powerful motivator. If people need you to achieve their goals, they will stay close.
He uses that vivid image of the well. He says, he that has satisfied his thirst turns his back on the well.
And then the orange.
Oh, right, the orange. Once the orange is squeezed dry, it falls from the golden platter into the wastebasket.
That image is haunting. It suggests that once your utility is gone, so is the respect. You are discarded.
So what's the strategy?
The strategy is to keep people on the threshold of hope. Never fully satisfy them. Never let them feel they have gotten everything they can from you.
It's the ultimate job security, really. Make sure the place burns down if you leave.
It's a bit like that.
But there's a flip side to this power dynamic, specifically about who you trust. Maxim 237. Never share the secrets of your superiors.
This goes back to the danger of intimacy with power. You might think that if a prince or a CEO confides in you, you're special. You're sharing the pears, as Gracian puts it.
But really, you're just sharing the pairings, the scraps.
Worse, you become a liability. He calls confidants sops of bread used as forks.
Whoa, that's a very specific visual. Can you explain what that means for us?
Of course. In that time, if you didn't have a fork, you might use a hard piece of bread, a sop to scoop up the meat or the sauce.
So it's a tool.
It's a tool. It's useful for eating the meal, but once the meal is done, what happens to the bread?
It gets eaten too, or thrown to the dogs.
Exactly. It doesn't get washed and put back in the silver drawer. Gracian warns that a superior does not like seeing the mirror that reminds them of their vulnerability.
Because you know their secrets.
If you know their secrets, you know their weaknesses, and nobody likes to keep a witness to their weakness around for long.
So don't outshine the boss, make them depend on you, but don't get so close that you become a liability. It's a tightrope walk.
A very narrow one.
Let's shift gears to the people who aren't above us, but maybe against us, or just annoying us. Theme 3, dealing with fools and enemies.
Gracian seems to have absolutely zero patience for stupidity.
Zero. His definition of a fool in Maxim 201 is brilliant. He says, the greatest fool is he who thinks he is not one and all others are.
That sounds like a specific psychological effect we talk about today, the one where incompetent people overestimate their competence.
Yeah, Dunning-Kruger.
Very similar. It's the total lack of self-awareness. But what I find interesting is his practical advice in Maxim 159, put up with fools.
Wait, if he hates them, why put up with them? Why not just crush them or banish them?
Because it's a test of self-control. He frames it almost like a workout for your character. If you can tolerate the varieties of folly, you have mastered yourself.
Yeah.
It's about patience.
Okay, but when it comes to actual enemies, he shifts from patience to utility. Maxim 84, make use of your enemies.
Yes, this is one of my favorites.
A wise man gets more out of his enemies than a fool does from his friends.
It is a profound insight. Think about your friends. What do?
They support me. They tell me I'm great.
Exactly. They flatter us. They want us to feel good, so they hide our defects. Gracian calls this dangerous because it covers our schemes.
Right, but an enemy, they'll tell you exactly what's wrong with you, usually loudly and publicly.
Yes. Their ill will is a mirror more faithful than that of kindness. They expose your faults so you can clean them.
So they're actually helping you.
In a way, your enemy drives you to be better, to be more cautious, to level mountains of difficulties you wouldn't otherwise face just to prove them wrong.
So don't get mad, get better. That's actually really healthy advice disguised as cynicism. But what if you do want to get back at them? What's the Gracian-approved method of revenge?
It is not what you might expect. It isn't a duel or a public takedown. Maxim 205 suggests the card of contempt.
Which means?
Oblivion, ignoring them. He argues that attacking a small enemy just makes them famous. You are lending them your spotlight.
Buried in the dust of their unworthiness.
Exactly. The best revenge is to let them be forgotten. If you engage, you validate them. If you ignore them, you erase them.
Man, he is brutal. But let's talk about something that affects everyone, not just those with enemies. Timing.
Right.
Theme 4 is all about timing, luck, and knowing when to quit.
Maxim 38 is essential here. Leave your luck while winning.
The gambler's fallacy.
He says all the best players do it. A fine retreat is just as important as a gallant attack.
So why do you do it?
The logic is that fortune tires of carrying the same person on her shoulders for too long. If you keep pushing a winning streak, you are statistically inviting a loss.
It's the Seinfeld rule leave on a high note. And he expands on this with the sinking sun metaphor in Maxim 110.
Do not wait till you are a sinking sun. The visual he paints is the sun retiring behind a cloud so that no one actually sees it set.
That is so specific. Why the cloud?
Because if you set clearly, people see you going down, they see the decline. If you go behind a cloud, you leave them in doubt. You leave while you are still bright.
The advice is to leave things before things leave you.
Right. Don't wait until you're fired or pushed out. Don't wait until the party dies. Maxim 124 says to get yourself missed.
Yes. If you stay too long, respect turns to familiarity and familiarity into contempt. But if you leave while you are still needed, you preserve your reputation.
But wait, earlier we said hide your ability. How can you be missed if people don't know what you do? Isn't there a contradiction there?
That is the tension, isn't it? You must be useful enough to be missed, but mysterious enough not to be taken for granted.
It is a constant balancing act.
And this ties into Maxim 299. Leave off hungry.
Even with nectar, remove the bowl from the lips.
This applies to everything. Food, Netflix binges, conversation.
It is the psychology of desire. Gracian says that desire is kept alive by the impatience of want, not by the repletion of enjoyment. If you satisfy people completely, they are done with you. If you leave them wanting a little more, they remain engaged.
So we've covered all this strategy. Conceal your skills, manipulate your boss, use your enemies, quit while you're ahead. To the listener, this might sound, well, it sounds a bit like being a sociopath, honestly.
It can, yeah.
It's all calculation. But then we get to the final theme, and there's a twist.
Yes. The synthesis. Maxim 204.3 advises, do not be too much of a dove.
But you shouldn't be a snake either.
Correct. He says, alternate the cunning of the serpent with the candor of the dove. This is the balance we spoke of at the beginning.
Right.
If you're all dove, you are just being deceived. Gracian says being deceived isn't always stupidity. Sometimes it is sheer goodness. And in this world, sheer goodness is a vulnerability.
So you need the serpent to protect the dove.
Beautifully put. You need to know the tricks, not to use them against others, but to prevent them being used against you.
And he talks about the man of the age in Maxim 20.
This is a nod to adaptability. He acknowledges that not everyone finds the age they deserve. You might belong to a better century, morally or intellectually,
Sure.
But you are here now. You must adapt to the present to survive, even if you keep your heart in the past.
And then the very last maxim, number 300. After 299 rules about power, silence, and strategy, what is the final word?
Be a saint.
That feels like a total left turn. We just spent 20 minutes learning how to manipulate people and hide our intentions.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? But look at how he defines it. He isn't contradicting himself. He says virtue is the link of all perfections. It makes a man prudent, discreet, and a universal hero.
The 3 H's. Health, holiness, and a headpiece.
A headpiece meaning wisdom or intellect. I think Gracian is saying that all these strategies, the silence, the timing, the power dynamics, they are tools. But the goal...
What's the point of it all?
The goal is to be a complete person, a person of substance. If you use all these tricks just to be a villain, you fail. But if you use them to protect your virtue and navigate a corrupt world effectively, that is the art of worldly wisdom.
So the cunning protects the saint. The mask allows the honest person to survive the court without being eaten alive.
Exactly. Without the armor, the saint is defenseless. With the armor, the saint can actually do good in the world because they are still standing.
Wow. Okay, so let's bring this home for the listener. Why should you care about a 17th century Jesuit's advice today?
Because, as we've seen, human nature hasn't changed. We might have Slack and Zoom now instead of royal courts and whispers in the hallway, but the dynamics are identical.
They really are.
We still have bosses who feel threatened. We still have people who will squeeze us dry if we let them. Gracian teaches us to be, as he puts it in Maxim 56, wide awake.
Being wide awake means observing reality, not living in a fantasy of how things should be.
It means looking into the interior of things, as Maxim 146 says, because things pass for what they seem, not what they are. Gracian is giving you the X-ray goggles to see the structure beneath the surface.
It's not about being evil. It's about not being a victim.
Precisely.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Gracian has this quote, "Use human means as if there were no divine ones, and divine as if there were no human ones." That is a heavy thought.
It is the ultimate pragmatic statement. Do the work yourself, rigorously, as if no one is coming to save you, but maintain your faith as if your work is secondary. It covers all bases.
So here is the provocative thought I want to leave you with today. We live in a world that is absolutely obsessed with transparency, authenticity, and being real.
Right. Bring your whole self to work.
And Gracian is essentially handing us a mask and telling us to wear it.
He is.
So is he wrong? Or is Gracian's advice to wear a mask actually the most honest way to survive? Does the art of worldly wisdom prove that while technology changes, the ugly and beautiful, complicated truth of human nature never really does?
That is the question. Perhaps the mask is what allows the real work to get done.
Something to think about the next time you're in a meeting and decide to keep your mouth shut. Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time.